Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1710A and today's date is November 7th, 2018 and the title of the episode is Phase 2 has begun. The pushback is real. Power of control. Now, before we get started, I wanted to talk about gold. Gold has been sought after, valuable, and highly regarded for thousands of years. Countries are repatriating and buying gold like never before. Gold is still considered one of the safest investments on earth. Gold was used in biblical times as a store of wealth and a way to move around without the need for banks and thrifts to hold your assets. This is still the case today. Gold can be used as a medium of exchange and a store of value. No currency in the world can claim to have been around since the birth of Jesus. It is this power to survive intact which has cemented gold's reputation as a safe haven for investments. Because of this stability, the IRS lets you use gold as part of your IRA or 401k rollover. Noble Gold are specialists in this type of product and have helped thousands of folks just like you to save for a happy and comfy retirement. If you would like to join them in that, call 877-646-5347 now and talk to the experts about how to get your gold IRA started, or go to noblegoldinvestments.com and start your investment in gold today. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, it looks like phase 2 of the plan has already started. Here we are, one day after the elections, and we see that the mainstream media, they are pushing back on what Trump is doing. Trump, his administration, they flexed their muscles with SWIFT, and it looks like they're controlling SWIFT right now. We'll get into that in just a minute. But first, out in the UK, we see that Theresa May, they are doing whatever they possibly can to push their deal. And it looks like they're putting the cart before the horse. May's leadership team, they decided to skip the hard part and start formulating a plan to sell the deal. Whatever that might be, we don't even know. May will try to sell the deal. May and her top officials plan to stress a strategy of measured success, that this is going to be good for everyone. Really? When the plan was done in secret. So how is she going to try to push this on the people of the UK? Well, the plan relies on endorsements from foreign leaders like Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, as well as a flurry of corporate endorsements to try to convince the public that this is a good plan, which tells you something right there and then. It's a bad plan. And we talked about this before, and it looks like what they're trying to do is they're trying to push this plan into the transition phase and never go anywhere with it. But they need the backing of other leaders, corporations, to say, hey, we endorse this. This is really good. But in the meantime, the plan is secret. The people don't really have any idea what it really is. They're going to get bits and pieces. And most of the people that voted for the Brexit, they're not going to agree with it. And we see that this is not the deal that everyone wants. And again, government not listening to the people. We see here in the United States, things are rapidly falling apart. And it usually begins in the real estate market. And if you remember back in 2008, when they told us that the real estate market is contained, don't worry about it, that started to fall apart, then everything else started to fall apart. Around that whole entire thing, corporations fell apart, and it's all connected. What we're seeing right now is the Fed continually raises rates. We're seeing that mortgage applications, they have plummeted to an 18-year low. Last time we saw this was 2010. And this should not be a surprise to anyone because we discussed this many times before. As the Fed continually raises rates, it's going to push people out of the market. Housing is going to become way too expensive. We already know that people can't even afford these houses right now, and it's going to get worse. Actually, Wells Fargo, they're showing that their pipeline is completely collapsing. And we're seeing that the housing market is starting to turn the other way right now. And when you really look at the U.S. mortgage applications, it has been on a decline since 2012. It's bobbed up and down, but if you look at the trajectory, it's completely in a downward motion right now. And what do these numbers reveal? It reveals that the average U.S. consumer can barely afford to take out a new mortgage at a time when rates continue to rise. the weakening housing market is similar to the last market high just before the subprime housing bubble burst a decade ago. If we look at this, we're back where we started. The economy didn't improve under Obama. It's not improving now. All they did was create this illusion. Look what happens when the Fed raises the rates just a little bit. Everything starts to fall apart. This is part of the plan right now. This is why they were not raising the rates under Obama, because they knew back then it would destroy the economy. They're raising the rates, and they started to raise the rates before Trump came right into office, and they did it after he was in office. And they did this on purpose because they thought, oh, once he gets in there, we'll wait a certain period of time, and at that time, the economy will be his. The economy will be turning in the opposite direction of Obama. It'll get worse and worse and worse. We'll raise the rates, and we'll blame the whole thing on Trump. But Trump turned this around, and he continually shows how the economy is doing fantastically. And the corporate media doesn't know what to do with this. They're stuck on this point. But I do believe the plan is to continually raise the rates, and he's working with Powell to do this. And he continually contradicts the Fed on purpose. He's laying the groundwork. We already see out of the Washington Post, and this is the headline out of the Washington Post, Trump's Fed bashing is wrong, but should the Fed be entirely independent? Now, what they do is they go through all of this to, tell you why the Fed should be independent. Now, the article starts off in the following way. Trump has publicly and harshly rebuked the Federal Reserve Board Chairman Jerome Powell for what the president regards as the misguided interest rate increases that threaten continued economic expansion. As with much of what Trump says and does, this way of doing business is counterproductive, irrespective of whatever merit his underlying position may have. No self-respecting central banker can be seen as yielding to pressure from a politician facing a difficult election. A central bank that appears subservient to political concerns will rapidly lose credibility in the markets, resulting in increases in inflation expectations and rising long-term interest rates. Fed bashing is a fool's game. So already they're building up the argument of why this isn't good. And if Trump is continually doing this, it's going to hurt the economy. Now they're trying to gain the narrative with this. And they're looking at this saying, well, the Fed should be independent, and Trump should not try to push the Fed in a certain direction. And if you really think about what Trump is doing, he's saying, listen, I don't agree with the Fed. I don't think they should be raising rates right now. But you know what? They know best. They know what they're doing. And if they want to raise rates, it's up to them. But if the economy falls apart, it's their fault. So he's not really pressuring them. He's just laying the breadcrumbs to let everyone know if they continue to do this, he's not agreeing with it, and the economy falls apart, they are to blame. And here they are trying to defend the Fed and trying to make sense of what is going on here. Now, we know that Mnuchin, who's a Goldman Sachs boy, the Trump administration, they called on SWIFT to cut off the Iranian banks. And SWIFT right now is a central bank system. And we see that SWIFT caved to the Trump administration. And what did they do? Well, they shut down the SWIFT system to the Iranian banks. And this was their message. This is coming from the Belgium-based financial messaging service. This step, while regrettable, has been taken in the interest of the stability and integrity of the wider global financial system. Because what were they threatening? They were threatening sanctions on the central bank system. So this tells us at this point that phase 2 has begun. They flexed their muscles and they were able to have the central bank do what they wanted. And we can see the pushback from the mainstream media. It has already started. And we're going to see a lot more articles like this. They're going to be coming out. And as time goes on, as we go throughout the rest of this year into next year, it's going to really accelerate. Because as the economy breaks down, Trump is going to come out and tell everyone that it's because of the Fed. As they are raising rates, look what's happening to the housing market. I mean, we had the economy doing fantastically. Now the Fed, and they're supposed to raise the rates one more time this year, he's going to show that, look, this is what's happening. It's the Fed's fault. And this is all being done on purpose. This is part of the plan. And sometimes plans change. Sometimes they have to be adjusted. Everything is not perfect in this world. And we'll be discussing that in the next report. And just because something is on track, they might have to deviate and try something else, because not all players work together, and some might drop off and some might stay. So when everyone hears the plan and all of a sudden we have to take a little veer off to the left or to the right, people go crazy. This is not perfect. We're not looking through a crystal ball and saying this is exactly how it's going to be. Sometimes the plan changes and sometimes you have to adjust, but the end goal is the same. And don't get upset if things change a little bit, because we're still heading in the same direction. And we're going to see the plan change multiple times. It's never going to go perfectly. It's completely impossible. And if it does, fantastic. If it doesn't, well, it's a detour, and then we come back to the goal. That's how this works. Actually, this is how life works. Sometimes it goes perfectly well. Sometimes you have to deviate and adjust your plan, but you're still going after the same goal. And this is what we are doing right now. The goal is to get rid of the central bank. The goal is to get rid of the deep state. The goal is still the same. Sometimes the plans might have to be reworked, but we're still pushing towards the same goal. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.